in the path of the storm, or if you're in the North Carolina area that's still devastated by Hurricane Helene, and you're wondering when the government's going to come and help you out, don't worry. Kamala Harris has it all covered. Kamala Harris is all covered. Kamala Harris is drinking beer. Colbert on the Colbert on the Late Night with Stephen Colbert. I almost called it the Colbert Report. How long ago? Where is my mind? Stephen Colbert had Kamala Harris on to chug some beers. There they are, just chilling. You know, people's homes are sinking, and Kamala Harris is drinking, and they're just laughing it up. They're there popping the tops. Psst, ah. Let's have a cold one, Kamala, and and toast to, I don't know, a massive devastation that's about to happen in Florida. I mean, this is the same day that she was berating Ron DeSantis. She was going after the governor of Florida, saying that he was playing politics. And then later that same day, she's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to enjoy the champagne of beers. Miller High Life with my good buddy, Stephen Colbert, while tons of Americans don't even have electricity. They don't have cold beer in Asheville. You know why? No electricity. They don't have cans of the champagne Miller High Life. By the way, who's still drinking Miller High Life? That's really, I mean, you want to talk about being out of touch. Miller High Life is clearly, and also in Milwaukee, you know that when this happened, when these images started going viral of Kamala Harris cracking open a Miller High Life, and oh man, she's loving her High Life right there. You know that there's marketing executives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at Miller Brewing Company going, no, we don't want that. Drink a Bud Light, lady. What do you know? No, not anything but a Miller. Don't you know that your people like Bud Light? Don't you know that that's what your people drink? Leave our beer alone. We're the beer of hardworking Americans. So that's what Kamala was doing on her tour. This was a horrible tour for her. It was a really bad tour for her. She was on The View. She was on Howard Stern. She did everything just poorly. On The View, listen to this. On The View, she said something that was not just a big fat lie, but also immediately made her the target, of course, again, of ridicule and, well, Donald Trump turning her comments into an ad.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
I love when he does that, by the way. I love it. That's one of the most effective meme campaigns I've seen, is Donald Trump taking clips of Kamala Harris saying stuff that benefits his campaign and just throwing his disclaimer on the end of it. I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. It just makes me warm and fuzzy and happy inside. But that's also a lie. That's also a lie. There is something she disagrees with Joe Biden on. She disagrees with Ron DeSantis' handling of hurricane preparations ahead of Hurricane Milton here in Florida. You may remember this was Kamala Harris yesterday.
President, Governor DeSantis, NBC is reporting Governor DeSantis is ignoring your calls on hurricanes, resources, and help. How does that hurt the situation here?
You know, moments of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moment that anyone who calls themselves a leader says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now, and playing political games with this moment in these crisis situations, these are the height of emergency situations, is just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish, and it is about political gamesmanship instead of doing the job that you took an oath to do, which is to put the people first.
Yeah, put the people first, Ron DeSantis. Now, excuse me while I go crack open a cold one with my buddy Stephen Colbert. It's Miller time. That's what she said yesterday about Ron DeSantis. Listen to what Joe Biden, who she doesn't disagree with anything on, said about Ron DeSantis just a few hours after she said that.
The governor of Florida has been cooperative. He said he's gotten all that he needs. I talked to him again yesterday, and I said, no, you're doing a great job. It's all being done well. We thank you for it. And I literally gave my personal phone number to call.
$20 says he gave him the wrong number. Joe Biden doesn't know his phone number. Come on. Yeah, Ron DeSantis is doing a great job. I said, you're doing a favor. You got it all under control. And I even gave him my personal phone number. I said, pick up the phone and say, Sarah, connect me to the White House. which is it's an old Andy Griffith show around there. I said, Pennsylvania 1600. That's my number. If you ever need a ring. Yeah, Sarah, give me Pennsylvania 1600. I got to talk to Joe. that's my phone number. 1-2-2-0-0-2-4. Remember when he tried to give out the text number? Joe 400-8000, and it was just such a debacle. But anyway, but that's a big disagreement that Kamala Harris has with Joe Biden, even though she said she didn't disagree with Joe Biden on anything. Nothing comes to mind, and I was part of all of those decisions. But Joe Biden now is taking every opportunity he can to contradict Kamala Harris, throw her under the bus, and let everybody realize, you know what, she may not be the best pick. J.D. Vance was watching The View before he took the stage yesterday at a campaign event.
But she walks into The View, and you would think that would be an interview, and you know what they asked her? They gave her a softball, an easy question. Really propaganda. They said, can you name a single thing where you disagree with Joe Biden? Now, let's back up for a second, because remember, Kamala Harris's entire campaign is to pretend that she hasn't been the vice president for the last 3.5 years. You know, she stands up before crowds and she'll say, on day one, we're going to tackle the affordability crisis. On day one, we're going to secure the border. And you listen to her for 5 minutes and you think, Kamala, are you going to vote for Donald Trump? Because you've been vice president for 1,400 days. You haven't done anything.
Yeah, and she's still, even now, given the opportunity to do stuff, even now, when she has the opportunity to go to North Carolina and help the hurricane victims or get some more money for FEMA, take it away from Lebanon or Ukraine or wherever else, even with all of that, you know what she's doing? She's chilling on Stephen Colbert, drinking a nice cold beer. A cold beer on Colbert. That's what she's doing. Cold beer and Colbert. This is not a good look for somebody, by the way, who's been rumored to maybe enjoy alcohol a little too much. And again, I'm not saying she's an alcoholic. I'm not saying she drinks too much. I've never met the woman. Don't have any plans to be, no desire to, but I've heard rumors. There've been rumblings online. There've been people that have been speaking, and there's this ongoing sentiment that maybe Kamala Harris cackles the way she does and acts the way she does because this is something she likes to do a lot. Not just when she's on national television during times of national crisis, but also, you know, when she's just hanging out with Dougie, when she's just hanging out, getting ready for whatever. That's, I'm just saying, if people already think you have a drinking problem, maybe don't go on national television and drink beer and create more problems for yourself. Again, her campaign is so poorly managed. The visuals that they give voters just weeks before they have to go to the polls, and some people are already going to the polls. The visual that people are getting of Kamala Harris while they're submitting their mail-in ballots or going for early voting is just awful. And everybody on her campaign staff should be fired because they're doing a horrible job. Donald Trump, I'm not saying Donald Trump doesn't do or say things that make his campaign staff cringe. Like, for example, did you hear this yesterday when he pointed to the gays for Trump?
Thank you very much. Where's gays for Trump? You don't look good.
Donald Trump's at Mar-a-Lago. He's like, "Where's my gays for Trump? You don't look gay."
Thank you very much. Where's gays for Trump? You don't look good.
And I don't know who he was talking to. I don't know who he was pointing to, but I know who he wasn't talking to. Let's go. Well, you're sure gay? You don't look gay. Are you sure? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back from Florida's. Hold on. You don't look gay. You don't look gay. Are you sure? Let's go. Yeah. That is definitely one of my new. It's definitely one of my new favorite clips. All right, listen, before we get to more Donald Trump stuff, before we get to any more Kamala Harris stuff, and I want to talk about what went down with Peter Doocy. there's two things really we need to hit. First of all, there's a threat to the United States of America that was thwarted by our intelligence agencies, and they thwarted this threat from Afghanistan that was supposed to happen on Election Day. Now, that's one threat that we know about, but there's several others, and we'll let you know how that got here in the United States and what potentially could be the ramifications. The second thing that I want to talk about is what happened with Peter Doocy and KJP, Corinne Jean-Pierre, in the press briefing room the other day, because that was also very intense. But right now, I'm very pleased to welcome a special guest to Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back from Florida's 6th District, Congressman Michael Waltz. How's it going?
Hey, good to be. Yeah, never a dull moment.
Never at all.
Swear.
Now, wait, are you staying? I mean, we're all on the East Coast, but you're farther south than I am. You're in St. Augustine, right, or near there. What's the forecast for Hurricane Milton coming through your area?
Well, it's forecasted to exit the East Coast and still be a hurricane, right? So it's really a 1-2 punch, because we get it from the west side, the intercoastal, the St. Johns River, and then when it exits to the ocean, that wind whips around like a right hook and then comes back in on the east side. What I'm worried about, just like with Irma, you dump all of that rain, all of that water in an already saturated ground and kind of the mouth of the St. Johns, and then it just moves like a massive bubble. It has to exit somewhere, and it's going to go all the way up through Jacksonville, flood the communities all the way along the way until it exits out to the ocean. So it's kind of this delayed gut punch.
Yeah.
But look, nothing compared to what Tampa is about to go through. I mean, everybody who has debris sitting in their yard has a bunch of projectiles sitting right in front of their house. Unfortunately, I know the governor's doing everything he can to get it out. Already activated, unlike what you saw in North Carolina and Helene, he's already pre-activated 8,000 guardsmen and women to be ready to support.
Thank God he's been ignoring the vice president's phone calls so he could have time to do all that. Isn't that? And now you are.
And thank God, Biden it clearly isn't coordinating his messaging with Kamala, because he just said, hey, the governor's been great. No problem. Totally responsive. The reality is the vice president has zero role in anything, but certainly not in hurricane response.
Correct.
It's the president. It's the Secretary of Defense, DHS, FEMA, like all of the heads of those agencies that get the go ahead. But of course, she's trying to bumble, forward into some kind of political relevance here.
Well, I mean, the whole thing with North Carolina was such a debacle. Let me ask you from a political standpoint, because there was a big concern that there's a lot of, conservative voters out there in the Appalachian Mountains in Western NC that aren't going to be able to vote because they don't have electricity, that are not going to be able to get the voting machines in. I know in Florida, we're a much more conservative state overall, but is that a concern with Milton coming through, that these communities in Tampa, Fort Myers, which was already devastated by Helene, are these communities going to be up and running in time for the election, which is less than 30 days from now?
Yeah, look, I mean, on the one hand, I'm confident the governor, we hit the kind of hurricane response button, and everything from mobile polling sites to mobile cell towers, the Florida National Guard, and now the State Guard, which Governor DeSantis set up, really has this on autopilot. And from a political standpoint, heck, Tampa itself is deep blue. I don't know how that balances out with the people in the surrounding areas. I think I'm completely confident in Florida. I'm very worried about North Carolina. And those voters that have, a 2-lane road that's been washed away. The Postal Service has cut off all service. I don't know where those ballots are going. But the good news is Michael Waltz, the head of the RNC, was the former head of the North Carolina party. I talked to him just a few nights ago, and he walked me through in detail their plan. Laura Trump, the head of the RNC, also from North Carolina. They know that area well, and they're confident. Heck, they're confident they're actually going to get better participation. People are so pissed off.
I imagine.
You don't understand these people, man. They'll ride a horse out of the mountains to go vote for Trump at this point.
It is such a weird campaign tactic of Kamala Harris's to avoid the area, ignore the pleas for help, almost insult the folks there with a $750 check that they can't even use, and then go on all these podcasts and gross radio shows and things. It's a weird campaign tactic. I've never quite seen it before in my life. But speaking of campaigning, You were in Butler, Pennsylvania. You got a shout out from Donald Trump on the stage. I heard that. And you flew in on Trump Force One. I saw one of your photos of the crowd from above. How was that experience?
You know, it was incredible. The pilot kind of tilted the wing as he was flying over Butler, and to see, you know, over 100,000 people gathering from above for a rally. And I think we caught a little clip of the president saying, "Wow, that's a big crowd," and Laura saying, "I've never seen one. I've never seen a rally that."
It was
big."
amazing.
But
yeah,
this was from people not just from Butler, but from all over the country. And I think it's more than symbolic. Where I've seen people and how they react to gunfire, and I don't care how well trained you are. You either ball up into a ball and get as low as possible, or you move to the sound of the guns.
Yeah. And
we saw a true test of Trump's character, and he was determined to finish the job. And I mean, that's going to be iconic. As I was saying,
I love it. It's one of my. It's the best thing he could have done, is just shown up and picked up exactly where he left off, which shows again that true leadership. So that is.
Yeah.
It
does. It was an honor to be here, and you know, there's moments in this job, Mark, where you kind of pause for a moment, you take a step back and say, I'm literally living history right now, and that was definitely one of them.
I texted you yesterday early in the morning, and I apologize. I didn't even check the time, but I woke up and I was thinking about some stuff, and I'd had a conversation with somebody else, because there are still multiple threats on President Trump's life. And I imagine it's going to continue through the campaign and even after the campaign when he's President-elect Trump, hopefully. And one of the things was the plane you were on. And I thought, you know, this plane hopefully is as secure as the rest of Donald Trump's area. And you assured me that it was, correct? Like, they've got the most ultimate protection around all of Trump's assets.
Yeah, they do when it's grounded.
Yeah.
Here's my concern. And I mean this, and I don't mean this to be hyperbolic or exaggerated or not.
Yeah.
It's one thing for some deranged kid or some nut like Ruth,
right,
to grab a gun, and should have never, ever gotten as close as they did. Huge failings on the part of the Secret Service, but at least they're being forthcoming about them. I just talked with the director again, and I'm confident they're putting measures in place to fix it. Here's where I'm not confident. The FBI has told us nothing more about crooks than we knew the week after the shooting. What happened to those encrypted accounts? How did he learn to build remote detonated IEDs? What was he going to do with the 2 that was in his car and 1 that was in his room? Why was he so sterile online? Who else was he working with, if anybody? How was he radicalized? You know, they can't just say this is under investigation until we get around to telling the American people. We need to know what they know when they know it. And I've told the chairman of the Assassination Task Force that I'm on, and the speaker, we need to subpoena Director Wray now, and we need to know what is going on now. So that's really frustrating and unacceptable. And then these plots from Iran are real.
Right.
These aren't just the Keystone Cops. We have intelligence operatives transiting Venezuela, going over our southern border unchecked, and recruiting hitmen as we speak. There was one that the FBI Miami field office noticed back in March. Go back and look it up. His name was Rahani. What happened to that guy? Is he still here? Is he still recruiting? What type of weapons are they bringing in? And when you look at the vulnerability of a plane, they can be hit by a drone taking off and landing.
Yeah.
They could be hit by a surface-to-air missile. And so when you say that Trump has the same level as the current president or Kamala, he does not, because those planes have military-grade protection that his does not. And so we have to ask ourselves, Mark, why is Iran trying to kill President Trump?
Right.
And why do they want Harris in? They hacked his campaign and gave the information to Harris.
Yeah.
In addition to trying to take him out before the election. Can you imagine, hypothetically, but if Trump were in power and Putin was trying to kill Biden or Harris and hacking their campaign and giving it to Trump, the media would be absolutely losing their collective mind. It would be Russia, Russia, Russia on steroids. Yet it's kind of a shoulder shrug when the Ayatollahs are literally have ongoing plots to kill a former president and a current candidate. That's an act of war. And we should be hearing that type of warning and promises of very real, very serious consequences from the White House to the Iranians. You want to talk about election interference? This is as bad as it gets.
Yeah, no kidding. This assassination task force, which, I mean, I can't even believe we have to have one, but now we have to have one. You're tasked with what? Investigating the assassination attempts and then, of course, thwarting future ones? Is that basically what the...
it's investigating the assassination attempts, but it's also, frankly, providing oversight of the investigations, both the Secret Service's internal investigation of itself and the FBI's investigation of the shooters. So, and then DHS, there's broader issues in terms of the right amount of funding, the right recruiting, the right training, that we're also looking at more long-term.
Yeah. Congressman Mike Waltz from Florida's 6th District joins us. So when I was up in D.C., you offered me your office, but then I couldn't be there because apparently there's an ethics violation with you not being there, and you had to take off to go campaign with J.D. Vance. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, man.
No,
Next time, right. And don't ask me to explain the lawyering of the of the ethics lawyers. Got to be there, not there. I don't know.
No, I know. Ethics has never been a big concern of mine.
We always abide by the ethics rulings, just for everybody listening and watching. Look, I've come. I didn't know J.D. Vance very well. He's only been in the Senate a couple of years. I have come to really appreciate him and really like him the more I'm with him. He is incredibly thoughtful. He is a great communicator, as we all saw with the second debate. And even if you may agree or disagree with his positions, he listens, he seeks input, he seeks insight. He realizes he hasn't done decades in Washington, which I think is actually incredibly refreshing. But at the same time, you got to know how these agencies work. I've worked inside a previous White House, inside the Pentagon, inside the intelligence community, and of course, 27 years in the military. And I just really enjoyed campaigning with the guy, getting to know Usha and his family, and they really are a partnership.
Speaking of all your time in the military, you have a brand new book out, Hard Truths, Think and Lead Like a Green Beret, written by Congressman Mike Waltz, U.S. Army Special Forces, retired, the only Green Beret to ever serve as a U.S. congressperson. And this book is special for a couple of reasons. What is different about this book, Hard Truths?
Well, thanks. I think it's somewhat of a unique perspective. Number one, Green Berets are unique in the world of special operations. I get asked all the time, how are you different than the SEALs and the Rangers? Look, they're the best in the world at, for example, what we did to Osama bin Laden. Middle of the night, other side of the world, surprise raid, 2 bullets in the forehead, and they are out of there. And that you can run, but you cannot hide from those elite warriors. Green Berets are different in that we specialize in embedding with our allies, whether they be local tribes, partnered militaries, different militias that we specialize in guerrilla warfare, unconventional warfare, gray zone, whatever label you want to put on it. We have to learn the local languages, blend in, and specialize in certain part of the world. And so in that environment, you definitely have a different way of thinking, different way of approaching problems. And I talk to, the reader about engaging with local militias. And some of these warlords would soon turn their guns and kill us as they would the bad guys.
Right.
I don't have any authority over them. I'm in the middle of nowhere with a bag of cash and a rifle. But if I can build those coalitions, what we call buy with and through, and get them to buy into our vision, America's interest, and do the job for us, rather than having 10,000 U.S. boots on the ground, you got 10,000 locals, I can deal with the tribes of Congress, so to speak, and build those coalitions. Some days I think the swamp is harder than the tribes of Africa, Afghanistan. I take people into the room on Air Force One, talking to President Trump on everything from building the Space Force to how to deal with dealing with the Taliban and negotiating an Afghan withdrawal and everything in between. I think you'll enjoy it, and all the proceeds go to veterans charities.
Yeah, it's different. Those militias, you have a bag of cash and a rifle. In Congress, all you have is a bag of cash because you can't take a rifle on the floor. And the proceeds go to benefit who?
The Green Beret Foundation and the Matthew Pacino Foundation, which is one of the Green Berets. Unfortunately, I lost. overseas.
Hard truths, think and lead like a Green Beret, Congressman Mike Waltz. And just FYI, if you never read a Mike Waltz book, you write them yourself, and he's a really good writer. The first book was great, and I can't wait to get this one. Go get it. Help out a great cause. Learn some fantastic skills.
Thanks,
and who is that autographed your book there, Congressman?
The 45th president of the United States, soon to be the 47th.
You know,
a great book. And then he said on his truth, he said it was huge.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it's interesting. Usually the author signs the book, but I guess in this case,
I signed one to him, and then he said, "Well, I'll sign one back to you." Of course,
that's true. Right? True Donald Trump fashion. All right,
said it's huge and beautiful.
Oh,
beautiful book.
Your books are huge. They're a read. I'll tell you that. Listen, Mike, thanks so much for being here, Congressman. Keep safe, and we'll check back in with you after the storm. And we appreciate all you're doing for the campaign and for the president and for the country.
All right, man. We're in the fight. Thank you.
Donald Trump. So, I love it. He says, like, President Trump, I got you this book. I'm going to sign it for you. And Donald Trump goes, oh, that's fantastic. Give me a copy. I'll sign one for you. But it's my book. Hey, you know what? Never mind. That is fantastic. I love that Donald Trump signed Mike Waltz's book for him. That's true. Only Donald Trump can get away with that kind of thing. Listen, we appreciate Congressman Mike Waltz. He's actually one of the good ones, and he's in there fighting for us. And he is, as a Green Beret and as a Special Forces operative and as somebody who's now in Congress, he really understands the needs of our military. He understands the needs of our fighting men and women. He understands the needs of our national security. He understands the needs for a border. And he's really, like I said, tight with the Trump campaign and doing everything on the inside to keep President Trump safe the next few weeks of this campaign and then through his presidency. And I imagine if anybody's going to get a cabinet position, some kind of defensive position, maybe in the Pentagon, maybe I don't know if he'd be defense secretary, but maybe deputy defense secretary, something along those lines. He's a good guy for it, and he's got a real future in the party and with the presidency. So we're thrilled whenever he comes on the show. Fun fact: he was the last guest I had before I got fired from the radio. But I still like to have him back. I wonder what's going to happen tomorrow now to this show. Listen, before we move on, before we get to that Afghan threat, because it's serious, and before we get to Alejandro Mayorkas and his dereliction of duty, and before I tell you what happened to me yesterday during my hurricane prep, I did want to remind you about our good friend of the program, our good friend of Marquez Saves the Republic, Chuck Norris. And a lot of people always wondered, whatever happened to Chuck Norris? You know who we need when there's a hurricane? Chuck Norris. Because Chuck Norris could just go... And the hurricane would be like, oh, I'm going, but he'd go down to Tampa, just go, and Hurricane Milton, gone. But a lot of people are like, whatever happened to Chuck Norris? He is in his 80s now. And look at this guy. This guy is just insanely, he's in an insane shape. He's stronger. He can work out longer. He has plenty of energy left over to play with his grandkids. And he did all of this. He stayed this way by making one change that he says makes him feel like he's in his 50s. And his wife did it too. And she says she's never felt better. She feels 10 years younger. Chuck made a video, especially for Patriots, that explains how he and his wife have basically fought back time and maintained this amazing energy. You can watch it at chuckdefense.com/MK. chuckdefense.com/MK. There's also a link in the description of this video. And just watching Chuck Norris's regimen, watching what he does, how he changed his life to save his life and to make him as energetic and as thoughtful and mentally stable as he is throughout his 80s. It's incredible. He just focused on 3 things that he knew was sabotaging his body as we age. You can watch his method. You can learn all about it. You can get more information. It's a video he specially made for us, and it's at chuckdefense.com/MK. Go there today. Watch the video. Be sure that when they ask you, you heard about it from me, Mark Kaye, on Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. All right, let's get to this whole Afghan thing that Congressman Waltz was referring to. There was an Afghan. I don't even want to say national. He's a terrorist. This terrorist came through, and he was given a special, almost like visa or special citizenship dispensation, or I guess resident alien dispensation, through part of a program that Kamala Harris put together when she was border czar. That's a great way to fortify our country. That's a great way to protect our sovereignty. Let's give out these special awards, basically, to Afghan terrorists. In fact, here is Where is this right now? Here is a clip we have from Laura Ingram's show yesterday, where she's talking to Tom Homan about exactly what went down.
But I first want to hit this issue of the Afghan special immigrant visas that were being handed out like candy after the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, which Kamala supported. You were on this show talking about how we would be bringing in people that we could not vet, that oh, he helped us or she helped us. Maybe some of them did. I'm sure they did. But we don't have any way of vetting most of the people coming into this country. Now, one of them was going to blow up, I guess, polling stations or, I mean, thank God they were stopped. But what else is ticking time bombs out there?
Yeah, you and I did discuss it. And, Secretary Mayorkas guaranteed us they're all properly vetted before they're flown to the United States. Even DOD's Inspector General, who investigated, said they were not properly vetted. So luckily we got this one, but what should scare the American people is because of what this administration has done, the Harris administration, how many more just like him are plotting an attack right now. Luckily, this guy was caught on some chatter, but we both know the intelligence community isn't perfect. They'll miss more than they get. So God help us, there is more than just this one in the country because of this administration.
So basically,
and he said,
"What?"
And he said,
"What?
No way."
What happened?
And I said, "Way."
Wait, what? What's going on? Where am I? There I am. That's a great clip. That was going to come in handy as we delve into this whole story that Bob Woodward's. We'll get to that in a minute. So basically, what happened was Kamala Harris and Joe Biden let in all these Afghan nationals with these special, visas or these special immigration papers, and they said, "Hey, you need to help us." And these guys are like, "Yeah, we'll help you. What do you need?" And they're like, "Tell us information about, terrorists." They're like, yeah, we'll do that. Meanwhile, these guys are terrorists. And they're coming into our country to terrorize us and to kill us and to blow things up and to destroy Americans and do it on election day or other days that are symbolic to our country. And this is something that is not isolated to this one event. It's not like, oh, we got them. There's thousands of others. These people have been coming over forever. Donald Trump has been talking about it for years. We've known that as soon as you opened up the border, it wasn't just these great Latin American families who were fleeing poverty and persecution, and it wasn't just political refugees with their orphaned babies that were coming over. It wasn't all fairy tale endings. It wasn't all people in need. It was people that wanted to come here and destroy us, not just from Mexico, not just from El Salvador, not just from Venezuela, but from China, the Middle East, from Iran, from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, from all over the place. Pretty much like 192 countries in the world? We're one of them. There are like 170 countries represented at the southern border. If you stopped any of those people coming by, you could ask them, and you'd hear Venezuela, El Salvador, Panama, and you'd hear Mexico, but you'd hear a lot like Iran, Afghanistan. I mean, they're all over the place. And now they're here in the United States, and they want to do us harm. And Brett Baer was, I heard Brett Baer say that. Listen to what Brett Baer said.
The FBI says it has foiled a terror plot set to take place inside the U.S. on Election Day. A criminal complaint just unsealed within the last 30 minutes says 27-year-old Nasser Tahedi conspired with ISIS and obtained firearms and ammunition to conduct that attack in the name of the terrorist organization, ISIS. The Justice Department says he took steps to move his family overseas and acquire machine guns and ammunition. FBI Director Chris Wray says tonight, quote, this defendant, motivated by ISIS, allegedly conspired to commit a violent attack on Election Day here in our homeland. Terrorism is still the FBI's #1 priority, and we will use every resource to protect the American people.
Wouldn't it be great, though, if they could figure out why these people are getting so close to assassinating Donald Trump? That'd be fantastic. But look, remember, terrorists are like cockroaches. Terrorists are like cockroaches. If you see one walking across the floor of your house, there are 1,000 in the walls. If you see one, on your kitchen countertop or in your cupboard, there are 1,000 buried within the plaster and the plywood and the stucco and whatever else you make your, I don't know what your house is made of, probably one or many of those materials. And that's exactly what's happening. One terrorist caught is whoopity doodah. Let's not rest on our laurels, because there's thousands more that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, and let's not forget Alejandro Mayorkas, have led into the country. Alejandro Mayorkas, by the way, don't forget how horrible this guy is. This is the only Secretary of Homeland Defense who's ever been impeached. And this guy does not care about America, does not care about Americans, does not care that terrorists are coming across the border, and doesn't care about the truth. Listen to what he said on CNN.
Shortly after Helene made landfall in the United States on September 26, Joe Biden was at his house in Rehoboth Beach. Vice President Kamala Harris was flying between ritzy California fundraisers, hobnobbing with celebrities. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was in Los Angeles presiding over an award ceremony. How do you respond to those accusations from J.D. Vance?
Kate, we don't listen to or pay attention to such unproductive and, quite frankly, counterproductive words.
Unproductive and counterproductive words? She asked him, she goes, look, J.D. Vance said that when Hurricane Helene hit and there was damage and devastation and flooding and death in North Carolina, when these people were cut off from the world, when they needed emergency services, Kamala Harris was in L.A. at a fundraiser. Joe Biden was kicking it on the beach, and you yourself were presiding over an awards ceremony. How do you respond to these accusations? He goes, we don't respond to unproductive words. Dude, it's not the words that are unproductive, it's the deeds. Sitting on a beach, fundraising for your presidential campaign, or hosting an awards ceremony are not productive behaviors for members of the executive branch. These are not productive behaviors for the president, the vice president, or the secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. These are unproductive acts, not unproductive words. Why don't you respond to why on earth is Alejandro Mayorkas, a cabinet member, presiding over an awards ceremony? What award was he? Was it the Razzies? Was it the Dundies? Was he getting a Dundee Award from Michael Scott for bushiest beaver? sorry, busiest beaver? This says bushiest beaver. Just whatever, just take it. I mean, baldest head, dumbest secretary, biggest weird, only a cabinet secretary to be impeached in the last 40 years. I mean, what was he doing? If you're hosting an award ceremony and the best person you can get to preside over it is Alejandro Mayorkas, you need to get into it. You need to stop you need to re-examine your entire existence. Your life is not what God's plan is for your life. But that's who's in charge of our country. And the same thing is happening again. The same thing is happening right now because we have so many people in the state of Florida who are petrified with fear. They're gone, actually. Most of them, most of them have heeded the call and they've fled. But here's Kamala Harris, and she, while Americans are about to lose their homes and their livelihoods and everything else, she's kicking it with Stephen Colbert and she's drinking beer on late night television. This was after she went to hang out with Howard Stern and talk about God knows what, because I didn't listen to it. This is after she went on The View to try to distance herself unsuccessfully from Joe Biden. This is after she went on the Call Her Daddy BJ Sexcast, which totally blew up in her face, no pun intended. I mean, this is, again, I want her to keep going. I want her to keep going on all of these shows, and I want her to make a bigger fool of herself. What happens when Kamala Harris goes on these shows is either A, she says something that makes her totally unlikable, or B, she contradicts herself. I mean, it's really, I think the more she's on TV, the worse off it is for her. And we see what's happening. The poll numbers for her are declining. They're shrinking. They're going down in places like, Wisconsin, which is a very important state for anybody who's running for president. It's a must win for Kamala Harris. In fact, there are paths to the presidency for Kamala Harris without winning the must win state of Pennsylvania. I'm going to pull up the map here right quick, and we're going to take a look. So this is the current map. Let me just make sure I just turned Florida blue. What in no world is Florida blue? All right, so this is the current map as it stands, and there's a bunch of states now that you can see that have not yet been decided, although I'm pretty sure North Carolina, after what's been going on, and Georgia, after what's been going on, I'm pretty sure those are red states. I'm going to give Donald Trump Arizona, too, because I just feel that confident that Donald Trump is going to win Arizona, which gives him a deficit of 8. Which gives him a deficit of 8 electoral votes, which means if Donald Trump can pull out a win in North Carolina, if Donald Trump can pull out a win in Georgia, if Donald Trump can pull out a win in Arizona, then he just needs one more of these Rust Belt states to solidify his presidency. Why is this ad keep popping? Get out of there. To solidify his presidency. And that could be Pennsylvania. In fact, most likely it will be, which would give him 281. And that would be a substantial victory for Donald Trump, and that would put him right back in the White House. But now, in addition to Pennsylvania, which Donald Trump is winning handily, he is also ahead by 3 points in Wisconsin, which gives him 291. He's also ahead in Michigan. We know that because what's her name said the other day that Kamala Harris is underwater in Michigan, according to the Democrats' internal polling. And keep in mind, there's a lot of senators and Congress people who are running internal polls. And when they ask questions, they don't just ask about their own campaigns. They ask about Kamala Harris's campaign. And when Kamala Harris's campaign gets internal polling, they share them with these other down ballot Democrats so that they can kind of get a sense as to where they are and where they need to be and if they're going to win or if they're going to have to be, tightening up their resumes. So if this is and then we could just give Donald Trump Nevada too, because I'm pretty sure all those people in Nevada in the service industry don't want tax on their tips. And all those old people that live in Nevada don't want tax on their Social Security. So Donald Trump could walk away with 312 electoral votes. Now let's just say that Kamala Harris is able to come back and win Wisconsin, okay? And let's just say that she wins Nevada, okay? Now you've got 242 to 262. If Kamala Harris wins Michigan and Pennsylvania, let me make those blue, then she's at 276 and she wins. But this is a big ask. She's got to win all 3 of the Rust Belt states. She's got to win Nevada. And that's the only path she has. If she doesn't win Pennsylvania, then she needs to flip Arizona and then maybe Georgia or North Carolina. This is all too much for Kamala Harris's campaign, as poorly as it's run to do. If Donald Trump takes Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris has to do miraculous things in order to be president. And right now, this is not a scenario that works out in anyone's polling. Her winning Nevada and Georgia and Wisconsin and Michigan doesn't work out in the polling. So that's why we're very, very, very aware of our election integrity. That's why our spidey senses are tingling when it comes to election integrity. And that's why we want boots on the ground in all of those places. Pennsylvania for gosh darn sure, but also Milwaukee and Michigan and Georgia and all those other states. The really bad news for Kamala Harris, get this. The really bad news for Kamala Harris is that Donald Trump's not just projected to win these states, giving him the 273 votes he wins, but there's a push in Virginia, and Virginia could go red for the first time in God knows how long. I'm still a big, firm believer that New Hampshire and potentially Maine could also go red. And Donald Trump has just scheduled a rally. Do you know where? On October 27th, the day after my birthday. The day after my birthday, Donald Trump is having a huge party at Madison Square Garden in New York City, the belly of the beast, as he calls it. Madison Square Garden, where Billy Joel sold out like 100 shows in a row. Donald Trump is going to go to Madison Square Garden. Do you know how insane New York City is going to be on October 27th? People will be lining up 4 days. 4 days. You won't be able to tell the difference because there's so many homeless people and immigrants that are sleeping on the street. But MAGA fans, Donald Trump fans, conservatives, Republicans are going to flock to New York City. They're going to sleep on the street overnight. They're going to want to get into MSG. They're going to want to go see Donald Trump. And this rally is going to be insane. It's a week before the election, October 27th, and it is in the belly of the beast. It's in downtown Manhattan, not just New York, not Buffalo, not Long Island, not those places, in New York City. And it's going to draw people from New Jersey. It's going to draw people from Pennsylvania. It's going to draw people from all over. And Donald Trump, is he going to win New York? There's always a chance. There's always a chance. New Yorkers are suffering probably more than most people. But Donald Trump is like, look, I'm going to go everywhere I can. I'm going to do everything I can. And if we want to do a rally at MSG then so be it. We're doing it. And it's booked. If you want to go, if you're in the New York area, October 27th, Donald Trump will be performing live at Madison Square Garden. I wish I could. It's my birthday weekend, and I've already got plans with the family. Otherwise, I'd be there. All right, listen. I got to get to this Peter Doocy. I had this yesterday, but I did. Peter Doocy is really, he's doing a great service to everybody here in the United States of America, because he is going into the White House press briefing room every single time they have a press briefing, and he's exposing Karine Jean-Pierre and Joe Biden for what they are. Karine Jean-Pierre, I mean, again, total DEI hire. She's a woman. She's a lesbian. She's African-American. This checks off 3 boxes. And when you see the way she performs her job or tries to perform her job, you can see that they did it just for the visual, if you will, just for the optics of having Karine Jean-Pierre in that kind of position. And it's great for Peter Doocy because she doesn't know how to handle anything. He asks her a question, which is a great question, by the way. It's a really important question. It's the kind of question that really everybody should be asking. He shouldn't have been the first person to ask this. She should have been peppered with this question over and over and over again. But the media, for the most part, is just a puppet of the Democrat Party. They're just a mouthpiece for the Biden administration. So they're not going to do or say or ask anything that's not been pre-approved. But Peter Doocy goes in there, man, and he asks Karine Jean-Pierre the question that we're all wondering about. And she answers him in a way which I believe is totally unprofessional, is dangerous, and is just also plain stupid. Also, she's dressed like a gangster she's dressed like James Cagney from an old gangster movie from like the 40s. And she's wearing like a pinstripe gray, I was like, Bugsy, see, come on, we're going to pop a cap. Yeah. So they were calling her Karine Jean Capone. I love people. So here is Peter Doocy and Karine Jean Capone going at it the other day about the hurricane relief.
This issue of funding. The administration has money to send to Lebanon without Congress coming back. But Congress does have to come back to approve money to send to people in North Carolina. Do I have that right?
Here's what I'm going to be very clear about. The president and the vice president has had a robust whole of government response to this. Hundreds of millions of dollars. I said it at the top, more than $200 million that we have directly put towards survivors here for disaster help. And that's because of this president's commitment to make sure that we are there for communities that are impacted. We take this very seriously again. We take this very seriously. And before the hurricane hit, we pre-positioned more than 1,500 federal folks on the ground to help.
Okay, where are those federal folks, by the way? If there's 1,500 federal folks on the ground to help, why haven't the people in North Carolina seen them? Where are the 1,500 federal folks on the ground? This is, by the way, these are the assets that Joe Biden talked about. Remember, he goes, well, we before it's happened, we set aside all these things, and then now there's no more. And they were like, there's no more? There's nothing else you can do? No, nothing else we could do. So she's saying, look, we pre-planned 1,500 people, and it wasn't enough. And they clearly didn't. They clearly didn't understand the threat to these people in North Carolina. But hey, you know what? We're all out of time and money and personnel. So they just got to deal with it.
And so we have made sure that every state has gotten their storm requested emergency declaration. They requested it, and we made sure they received it. We've taken this very seriously. More than $200 million that we have provided to the impacted areas. But instead, people want to do disinformation, misinformation.
Oh, now she's calling him disinformation, misinformation. He asked her, he said, wait a minute, why is it that the president can have all this money and access for these foreign countries without Congress, but now when it comes to Americans, he's got to have Congress come back? She goes, that's misinformation. You're lying. He's not lying. That's exactly what Joe Biden literally tweeted that, or whoever posts on X for Joe Biden posted it on X for Joe Biden. So where's the misinformation? And if it is misinformation, is it coming from the White House?
Which is dangerous. Because then when folks on the ground hear that, they may not want to ask for the help that they need. That is there for them. That's our focus here.
But President Biden is fond of saying, show me your budget and I will tell you what you value. If he's got money for people in Lebanon right now, without Congress having to come back, what does it say about his values? There's not enough money right now for people in North Carolina who need it.
I love when Peter Doocy takes Joe Biden. He does his homework, this guy. He comes into the White House and he goes, look, Joe Biden says, and he says this all the time, show me your budget and I'll show you what your values are. Show me your budget. I'll show you what your values are. Okay. Joe Biden's budget has billions of dollars for Ukraine, billions of dollars for Lebanon. And what did she say? 80 million for hurricane victims? 80 million? That's it? 80 million for hurricane victims in the United States of America, billions in Lebanon. So Joe Biden's values are in Lebanon. She did not like this whatsoever.
That's not misinformation.
Wait, no, that is your whole premise of the question is misinformation, sir.
How is a premise of a question misinformation? A question cannot be misinformation. His question is, wait a minute, Joe Biden said this, so what are his values? That's not misinformation. A question cannot equal information. A question is a form of gathering information. What's your favorite color? Red. Okay, so you're telling me that your favorite color is blue? No, that's misinformation. That's how it works. The question is not misinformation. It's trying to get to the truth. And she doesn't want to let Peter Doocy know the truth, so she's attacking him and basically calling him fake news.
What you don't, yes, it's misinformation.
Is there money to send to Lebanon right now?
I just mentioned to you that we provided more than $200 million to folks who are impacted in the area, and I just shared with you that people are deciding not to. People are deciding not to.
Letter to Congress that there's not enough money to help people in
We're
North
talking
Carolina.
about the SBA disaster loan.
That's
yes.
money for people in North Carolina.
And that's important, and people in North Carolina need that. Wait, this is nothing new. Peter, this is nothing new. Congress comes together, they provide money, millions of dollars, for disaster relief. We're asking them to do the job that they have been doing for some time.
From a letter that President Biden sent to Johnson, McConnell, Schumer, and Jeffries. The president's letter is not misinformation. Would you agree?
No, the way you're asking me the question is misinformation. There's money.
At this point, I thought she was going to pull out a Tommy gun and just be like, 3, 2, like in what was it? The movie in Home Alone. Yeah, keep the change, you filthy animal. That's exactly what I thought. That's exactly. Wait, I want to just get to the part where she walks away in disgust because that's my favorite part.
That we are allocating to the impacted areas, and there's money there to help people who truly need it. There are survivors who need the funding, and it's there.
That you don't like misinformation.
I said that. I actually said we have the money available to help survivors of Hurricane Helene and also Hurricane Milton. Now there's going to be a shortfall, right? Because we don't know how bad Hurricane Milton is going to be. And so we're going to need additional funding. That's
exactly what I just asked about. And you said it was misinformation. Yes.
What you're asking me is why Congress needs to come back and do their job. That's what you're asking me. Congress needs to come back and do their job and provide extra assistance, extra funding to disaster relief fund. That's what Congress needs to do, and we're going to continue to urge that. You may not want that, but that's okay. That's what this president wants, and that's what the vice president wants. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, look at that. Vice President Kamala Harris doesn't want to give money to the hurricane victims. She wants Congress to come back and give money to the hurricane victims. There's so much money that Joe Biden can write a check for. He could just demand executive orders, this and that. He's got all sorts of funds allocated, and they're doling it out to foreign interests. They're doling it out to folks in Lebanon, who, by the way, let's be honest, we know where Hezbollah is. You know, we know where the terrorists are. We know where the attacks on Israel are coming. Let's send some more money over there to Lebanon. How much of it is going right back to Hezbollah, do we wonder? What about all the money we've given to Ukraine? Just every time that guy shows up in town, he gets a big fat check and he takes it back to Ukraine, and he buys more Ferraris and rents more Airbnbs in the south of France and sends his wife to Paris to go get some more clothes for her next Vogue shopping spree. Her next Vogue cover shoot. Those are the things that our money's going to. But when you have folks in North Carolina, in the mountains of North Carolina, conservative red state voters in the mountains of North Carolina, they don't get the money. Congress has to come back, because that's what you're really asking me. You're spreading misinformation. Congress needs to come back. Joe Biden can't give the money. And that, of course, is just not true. It's really sad. It's really sad when you have somebody like that going out there and lying on your behalf every single day and getting called out for it and making a fool of herself, even though she knows deep down inside that her administration, her boss is wrong. Whoever's telling her not to tell reporters the truth, whoever's telling Joe Biden don't send the money is really, they're at fault. And she refuses to do or say anything about it. Now, this Hurricane Milton, which is headed to Florida, again, we seem to have it a little better off here in the northern part of Florida than we thought. This thing has moved south once again. And even though we prepared, even though the kids are out of school, yesterday, by the way, yeah, let me tell you what happened to me yesterday. I went out to, I bought a generator. Oh, pardon me, I gotta move. I bought a generator like 4 or 5 hurricanes ago. No, I guess it was like 2 or 3 hurricanes, probably 3 years. I went out and I bought a generator and it came in the box and I put it in the garage and I put it in the corner. I said, okay, if this, because I wasn't sure if that was going to be a bad knock out the power kind of hurricane, we were going to need to plug in the refrigerator kind of hurricane. I wasn't sure about that. So I put it in the corner of the garage and I left it there and I waited. And I said, if the current hurricane hits, I've got some gas cans. I'll come out after the storm and we'll fire it up. Didn't use it year 1. Next year, there was another like tropical storm. Power didn't go out, didn't need it. 3rd year, didn't need it. Well, this year, I realized this thing could be bad. And the wind gusts and the rain could knock out power, even though we're not directly in the path of the hurricane. Whenever you have strong wind in Florida, there's a palm tree that, you know, can knock over a power line or a coconut.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Yeah. And, you know, any of those things could happen. So I wanted to be prepared. So yesterday, about 7 o'clock at night, I go out to the garage and I take a knife and I slash through the cardboard and I rip it open. I put the wheels on it and I put it all together and I get the funnel and I pour in all the 3-stroke lubricant. Sounds dirtier than it is. And that sounds like something they would use on the Call Her Daddy BJ podcast. Anyway, but so I gas it up, put some gas in it, and I wheel it out of the garage and I turn it to run because you got to, put the choke on. So I put the choke on and I start pulling the thing and nothing's happening. And I go, well, this isn't good. So I pull the thing some more, like I'm yanking it, and I go, and it's nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden I hear something dribbling. And I go, that smells like gasoline. And so I look down and there's a puddle of gasoline dribbling out of the bottom of this generator. And I go, well, that's horrible. So I look down and there's my brand new straight out of the box generator that I've had in my garage for like 4 years. There's like a tube missing or a piece missing. And the fuel line, the fuel's dribbling down. It should dribble into a tube and then into the actual engine. It's not doing that. It's just dribbling out. And I go, what? So I turn it off. So the flow of, gasoline stops going all over my feet. And I go back in the garage and I get the flashlight and I'm on my hands and knees. I'm looking for this tube. I'm like, maybe it fell off. Maybe it's in the box. And I'm throwing the plastic and the peanuts and everything. Can't find it anywhere. So I think to myself, all right, this is clearly a sign from God, because I try to look at everything in a positive way. I don't look at anything as bad anymore. After what's happened to me in the last 12 months, I don't look at anything as bad. I look at it as, okay, this is a message from God. What is this message from God telling me to do? And how should I bet? What could I think? I could think, oh, God hates me and doesn't want me to have power and he wants all my food to go rotten and he wants my kids to cry and all this stuff. If the power goes out, I go, no, that's not the message from God. The message from God is, okay, what's the positive? We learned well before the storm that this generator that we thought was brand new is missing a crucial part for its operation. Therefore, it's good that you pulled out now this generator and tried to get it started. That way, you knew that you had a busted generator. So I thought, okay, God's telling me to go to Home Depot and get a new generator. So I hose down the gasoline, I wash my hands, I yell at the kids, I'm going to Home Depot. I get in the car, I drive to Home Depot, and I kid you not, it's 8:30 at night. I walk into Home Depot, they're closing, and I don't even go back to the generator aisle. I go right up to customer service, and I say, do you have any generators left at all? And the guy goes, I have this one right here. It's the only one in the store. And I look, and literally right next to him in a shopping cart, like it was just waiting for me, is a generator. And I go, what? He goes, yeah, some lady just returned it 20 minutes ago. And I go, does it work? He goes, oh yeah, she bought it for her friend but her friend already had one, so she just brought it back. And I said, this is amazing. And he goes, it's yours if you want it. So I'm thinking to myself, this is great. God said that your power is probably going to go out. Your generator's bogus. You don't know it because you haven't taken it out of the box in 4 years. So we're going to teach you a lesson, but we're also going to reward you in the end. So then I brought this other generator home and I opened it up, fueled it up, pulled the cord, and it just started up perfectly. So now I'm kind of excited about the power going out because I have a brand new generator that I can use. So that's kind of what's been going on. That's how I look at life now. Whenever something bad happens, it's not bad. It's just a lesson. And if you act on those lessons immediately, you'll always be pushed in the right direction. It's like when I got canceled, not just from the radio, but when I got canceled from Facebook, when I got canceled from Twitter, when I got canceled from LinkedIn, rather, when I got demonetized on my first YouTube channel, when I got kicked off of TikTok like the first 4 times. I always said to myself, I could do one of two things. I could cry about it or I could figure out a way around it. And I figured out a way around all of it. And that's why I wrote this brand new book, Cancel Proof, which you can get, by the way, at markkaye.com/cancel. And this book is not just, it's twofold. It's stories of me and other conservatives getting canceled and silenced and doxxed because of our conservative voices and our conservative messages. And as a conservative, I'm sure you have also seen on many a time, you have seen other conservatives complain about being canceled or silenced or censored or put in Facebook jail or whatever it is, just because of the stuff they post. But yet there's also conservatives out there who have figured out a way around it. And luckily, I've had so many opportunities, thank you, God, to figure out how to get around cancel culture and how to get around cancellation online and figure out a way to still succeed and thrive as a conservative in what is a liberal-dominated, area of our lives. And so I wrote it all in this book. This book is an ebook, and it gets delivered to you instantly. And as part of our pre-launch offer, if you get it right now, you get 2 books for the price of 1. You get the ebook and you get the audiobook. It's an audiobook of me reading you the book. So if you're like, I don't like to read, but I like to listen to Mark Kaye, then this is great. You get all the information. You get to learn how to cancel proof yourself. You get to learn my social media strategy for conservatives to thrive online. If you're a business person and you do anything online, anything, whether it's DMing folks or posting on Twitter, whatever, you run the risk of having your entire financial livelihood shut down if you're canceled as part of your, as part of this cancel culture movement. So go to markkaye.com/cancel right now. It's a great time to get it. If you're in the path of the hurricane, get it now so that because you're going to lose your internet. Get it now. You can be reading it, while on your device while you're waiting for the lights to come back on. markkaye.com/cancel. Listen, I'm going to be watching very carefully and diligently the track of this storm. I'm going to be watching very carefully and diligently the news reports. And if you have a cell phone, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed on Rumble. If you can get the podcast, definitely get the podcast because it's a way for us to keep you entertained and informed. Hopefully you'll have cell service if you lose it, and you'll be able to still download the podcast and listen to it. Make sure your phones are charged up. If you've got any battery packs or chargers, those portable chargers, get those going too so you don't miss a minute because we've got fewer than 30 days to band together, stick together, come together, and do everything that we can, everything that we know we must do to beat Kamala Harris, to beat the Democrats, to beat the left-wing lunacy that's been taking over our country, to re-inspire our fellow Americans with good, wholesome, Christian, constitutional values that our country was built on. The same values that have made our country great in the past and will make our country great in the future. It's up to us to do it. It's up to us to fight. It's up to us to win. It's up to us to save the Republic.